Welcome to Canada's podcast, the number one podcast for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs. So Eric, welcome to Canada's podcast on this beautiful day in Toronto at about 20 degrees, which is kind of ludicrous for November the 11th, but it's terrific. But why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, as I ask everyone to do this, who you are, why I'm sitting here talking to you, let people know who you are. I think that makes it more interesting.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks again, Philip, for having me today. I'm like you, a longtime marketing, advertising nerd. I wanted to build websites back in the mid '90s. I was doing some fine art in school and some sports, and had to find a way. And met somebody that was building websites, and ultimately that got me hooked. And I've been in the business ever since, and have seen it obviously morph and change over the last couple decades. And still a great business to be in. And now I'm working on a tool called Morphio, which is a piece of software for marketers and agencies and brands, trying to help bring a little bit of solace and protection and automation to the marketing industry.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So, have you always worked as an entrepreneur? How did you become one? That's always an interesting kind of journey for people. And that's part of what this interview is about, is, how did you get here? Why the hell does someone step into a risk position when most people I meet are perfectly talented and capable of holding jobs, except sometimes they can't keep their mouth shut. So I don't know.
I've done that. I think that's how I ended up being an entrepreneur. No.
That's often part of it, for sure.
That's right. I've asked myself that question actually a lot over the years. And I used to answer it and say, which is true. I used to be, and still in some cases, a terrible listener. And so back to my high school coaches, I really wasn't great at taking their advice. I always wanted to figure out something out on my own. And I think that just naturally led me to loving the opportunity to problem solve. And so coming out of school, it was a sort of forced hand. I had a quick job. And again, I just didn't find what I loved about why I went to school. And it was just, again, this is the late '90s. So at a time where building websites and being creative on the digital space of website build, et cetera, there wasn't a lot of people doing it. And
it was very new then. Yeah, I was involved in it, but it was a new time.
Yeah, brand new. And I think at that time, it was just before the .com. And so there was a lot of money floating around. And so a couple of my friends from school and I got together, and we just started, offering our services to anybody that would listen. And we got lucky, and we were able to really grow that business for about 8 years until I exited that business and went in a different direction, but got that bug pretty early on in terms of the problem solving then of business and figuring out finance to, also working in the service side. And eventually somebody had to, answer the phone. And, one story I remember that was nerve wracking and exciting was I got a call one day from gentleman named Steven, and he worked at a company called AOL. And I wasn't sure if he said his email address was AOL or if he actually meant that he worked at AOL. And at the time I was in my business partner's parents' basement, like all good startups. And we had a decent internet connection in our own phone and in our own computers, and we were in business, right? So they loved some of the work that we did on the personal side and said, hey, we'd love to come and see your operation and see if you could help us with some user interface design. And we said quickly, well, we actually happen to be heading to New York next week, which wasn't entirely, the truth, but it was the first time where thinking on your heel, on your feet there, and figuring it out. I think then I became addicted, and I'll stop my tangent, but I was speaking to a fantastic individual actually about a couple months ago, and they, parallel their entrepreneurial ism to sports and team sports, and in being able to be a leader within that. And it trained them that they, could take that initiative and take a stance and things and look at opportunity and overcome it. And just because I played a lot of sports as well, I think there's a combination of that, a little bit of luck and some genes. And I think that's what got me started.
Okay. Now, so, you've gone through, 20 odd years of it. I think I always like the challenge side of it, and the way we learn from challenges. I mean, what's been the greatest challenge you've faced to date in your business, and how did you overcome that? I mean, every day is a challenge. I love the word challenge. It means a very high thing for me. But what's the greatest one, say, in the last couple of decades?
Yep.
And how did you get around it?
Oh man, I mean, how much time do we have? But the one that comes to mind is, well, and first I will say that if you want to become an entrepreneur and a well-rounded one, there's no better way and more expensive way than running your own business in the world of marketing and advertising, because you bounce around, or at least we did. We didn't have a specific sector in our agency or agencies that we focused on. We worked for pretty much anybody that had intent, and there's a whole bunch of criteria, but you get in, and I think as a naturally inquisitive and problem solver, and just like you said, loving the challenge, that you have to dig in and really understand that entire business. And being fortunate enough to, in our case, work with the owners, or at least the directing managers, you really start to understand every kind of business. So over the years, from fitness to beverage and cannabis to fashion and retail to on and on and on, you become this sort of well-rounded business person sort of by accident. And I think that, there's many, many, many stories of challenges within that. But, we started an agency after I left my original one, and this company called Arcane in 2011. And we quickly grew to one of the fastest growing agencies in North America. Again, from basements, of course, like every business, to almost 100 people in just over 5 years, and a lot of growing clients. But we had one massive client that, we had too much revenue dependency on, and we knew it. But I think we didn't plan well enough for what that meant to our business, and not from as much from a financial perspective, but more from the controlling side of, we weren't really able to do what we wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And so we learned very quickly that we had to make a conscious decision, and luckily it worked out on both sides. But then we moved very quickly to never letting that happen to us again. So we kind of got lucky.
I've mirrored that.
Well, in the industry space, as agency world, it's sort of one of those things, especially at the larger level, is, there's one or two clients that you win the business on and you ride that wave. And if they go away, you lose a lot of people, you lose market share, and sometimes you have to close your doors. And we never wanted that to be the case. And so knowing that and having a taste of, holy crap, this client could leave, and there goes 50% of our revenue. That was a wide and rude awakening. So definitely the biggest challenge that I remember.
I kind of learned the same thing. Never let a client become more than 20%.
There you go.
That was my takeaway on it.
And I think we got down to about 8% on the max. Sometimes it would get up to 10, but it would never be over 12. So we lowered that even down a bit, and that took probably 7 or 8 years, Philip, to actually figure out. So
So if you could go, I mean, you've done a lot in the last couple of decades. If you could go back to the beginning again, what kind of advice would you give? I mean, because we have lots of, younger entrepreneurs in URI listening to the show. Thinking about it 20 years ago, what kind of advice would you give yourself now that you've learned? I mean, I think we've both been in that kind of thing. So what do you think is the gem you learn from?
Yeah, and it's funny. I just had this conversation with an agency friend of mine out in New Zealand, and my first instinct was to not get into the agency business, and I was joking to them, but I said it in a way where it's like, I didn't mean that. I love marketing, but the agency side of service. And I said, what do I mean by? He said, what do you mean by that? And I said, well, you have to focus on service, you have to focus on, understanding what your client needs. But what the business actually is selling results. And that's what clients are paying you to do. And that's what they want you to think about. And you can be wrong and you can make mistakes. But at one point, if you get to becoming an order taker and ultimately just trying to let service keep that relationship going, someone else is going to be better and smarter and faster and more hungry than you. So that's always the advice I would come is make sure, ultimately that you're selling results, that you think about a strategy that allows you to be better and different than your competition. So you're not selling the same thing, to look at finance first and make sure that you have plans to grow your business, understand cash flow and all those things. And if you're willing to do that, then the last and most important part is, are you willing to live in that sort of sweet and sour part of entrepreneur, which is you're always on and you're never really off. And you have to have that conversation with your spouse, partner, family member, whatever, whoever you're going it through. Those are the kind of four main things. And ultimately that relates to that whole work-live balance or work-life, whatever you want to call it. I like to say work-live because as an entrepreneur, if you're in it with your spouse and partner and you can completely free yourself to be on it, that's where the scale comes in. And I think that's where the passion lives. And that's a two-way street. But that's a couple points of advice that I'd give.
So the other thing that I ask everybody, because I love the answers, is, we've all had mentors, be they parents, be they whatever. What's the best piece of advice you received that you kind of carry along in your pocket, that's there all the time?
Well, I mean, the easy way to say that is you've got to love getting up and attacking every single day. If you're hitting the snooze button, you're in the wrong business. Before I had kids, and I made this speech once to my team, and I said, my wife was there, and I said by accident, I said I love weekdays in the week more than I love weekends because I just cannot wait to attack the opportunities that are at hand. And maybe that wasn't the best thing to say with my lovely wife in the room. And it is still true to this day. And of course it's finding that balance of all that with family and kids, et cetera. But I still have that same feeling. I cannot wait. And I remember the feeling of what it was like that small period of my life where I dreaded the Monday morning wake up.
Home office, and I'm close to St. Joe's Hospital.
And I remember that feeling on the Sunday night and the Monday morning, and I made a vow that I would never, ever, ever have to go through and live that again if I so could choose. And that's what really kind of keeps me going. Keeps you going.
So just moving on to some kind of fun questions.
Yeah.
If you weren't doing what you're doing now, what do you think you'd be doing instead?
Well, if I had to make money, the one thing I've always loved is, home renovation, interior design, the whole seeing the vision of a project and executing it ultimately is, I think, why I'm in this business too, which is actually closely related. But that hands-on side of creating websites, graphic design, that's what I grew up doing and love seeing something and all the way to fruition. So if I had to make money, it would be doing that. If I didn't have to worry about money, obviously it's, sports related. I've become a big roller hockey inline player, playing ice since I was 2 years old. So that's a cool passion. And I run a league here in our city and trying to get kids to be healthy and involved, of course, my own too, but that's sort of the sports passion. So there's two ways I'll answer it, Philip.
Well, what made you stay in Toronto? I mean, you're in the media business. I guess Toronto is the number one place to be in Canada. But, you've been successful enough. There's New York and San Francisco and a few other places that you could go, hang out and why here?
Well, and I know I didn't clarify this because our head office is in Toronto, but I actually, and half of our team is there, but I live in London, Ontario. and technically in the middle of nowhere outside of it, and grew up.
I know London. I know London pretty well.
Yeah, most people do. There's this weird connection to it, and but it's funny. We started here. My original business was with we did a lot of the really cool early production.
By the way, I'm in Hamilton. Just to give you
there you go. Okay, I'm not too far at all. We could have gotten together, but next time. But we got a little bit lucky, so we stayed here and worked with agencies all over the world, and we did a lot of their production. That was my original business, and AOL, as I mentioned, was one of those kind of early amazing clients we got. Parlay actually. Pause for a second. It's gone back to that with what we're going through right now, which is a whole nother conversation. But we found pretty quickly that we could have quite a quality of life living in London, and the cost of living, and our ability to, at that time anyway, direct flights from London to New York and Chicago and Cleveland and a whole bunch of other places really quickly. So we had clients, yes, everywhere, inclusive of Toronto. And it just became a great place to run and start and manage a business. And, once we grew up a little, quickly realized that there's a ton of fantastic head offices and that the city of London itself was growing. So I would have spent most of my time between Calgary and Toronto and in London for the majority of the last decade in our offices and in our clients and in our team in those spots. But love Toronto, love London, obviously love Calgary. Those are my, three favorite places to live and visit. So.
Yeah, I'm pretty well traveled and done stuff all over the planet from Toronto. So it's
beautiful.
It's been a good place for me as well. So, a little bit more about you. Are you a morning or a night person?
I am definitely a night person. Absolutely.
That's interesting. I mean, I've actually, the last two interviews have been night people, but I would say it's about 80% morning to 20% night.
Well, there you go. I've tried the morning. It's much easier without kids, especially when their feet are in your face all night long. So maybe someday I'll go back to morning, but I'm not quite ready for that yet.
This is something again, what book are you reading at the moment? Listening to? I don't care whether you're reading it or listening.
You know what? I just downloaded, and normally it's business book after business book, but I just downloaded Matthew McConaughey's new sort of storytelling. I don't know why that is the case, but if anything, it's that transformation that he took from the guy without a shirt on the beach to an unbelievable actor in many of some of the best dramas.
I saw an interview on him on Sunday, I think it was, and he was amazing.
Yeah,
he stopped. He stopped.
He stopped. Yeah. He stopped for 2 years.
I love people that do that stop and say, "No, I'm not doing this anymore."
Yeah. So some of his stories that he shares, an unbelievable way to grow up and become what he's become. So I think that's a big one. And
any books that you read in the last decade that have really.
Yep.
And it doesn't have to be just business. I mean, that have impacted the way you think, kind of thing.
Yeah. So Jordan Peterson's, 12 Rules of Life, and one recently, I'm trying to think of the author. It's Business of Expertise, David Baker. Those are two on very different sides. I'm still a big fan of, How to Win Friends and Influence People, old school book, but the notion that you can really make people unbelievably love yourself. For an introvert who's always trying to figure out, talking about business, very simple and easy, and I'm very comfortable, but still much an introvert around myself, et cetera, and trying to connect with people in different ways. So I often reference that, and trying to be that golden retriever in the room that just makes people feel happy and smiling while you talk, no matter who you're doing. So that's a staple, for sure. And one other I can think of is what clients want, especially in the service business. Looking, it's probably about 15 years old now, but those are a few that I would say that have stuck with me, and I'll dust off every once in a while for sure.
So if you had to pick one word to describe yourself, what would it be and why?
I mean, I never stop working. My wife's family, they're all from the south of France, and they're visiting with us quite often. And every time I see her, she always says in French, you never stop, you never stop. With its kids and things outside and to work, etc. I learned very well from my grandfather, who was an entrepreneur and salesman, that you only have a certain amount of time to do your thing and make a mark. And I would say, if it's driven or grit, those are two words that come to mind and that I've used in internal team workshops and things like that. It just means a lot. I mean, I think working hard, you always get out what you put in, and you got to enjoy the ride. So when it's not work and you love it, it just makes every day that much more fun.
Sorry, man, I've obviously done a little bit. Tell everyone what you're doing today without going too promotional, but it's pretty interesting, I think. So.
Yeah, I mean, and I talked a little bit about the agency side, and I, although still involved, we ended up just selling the majority of that business to a new group called Republics, and together we're actually taking aim at the industry again with a very new model based on technology, and trying to bring together a bunch of us independent agencies to really go after some big market share. So that's exciting, which means I'm not. I handed over the reins from the CEO and perspective a couple of years ago, but our team stays intact. Our leadership stays intact, and we're obviously still around to help guide the ship and doing more of that with our parent company. From a marketing perspective, though, we built some software to help our business grow and scale, and allow our people to not be as busy and be as tired and be as stressed. And so we started to build automation in our agency that we've now turned, into a separate business. So it's called Morphio, and you plug in your digital marketing, and it's going to help tell you what's going on, mainly on the protection side. So our goal there is just to free up marketers. Again, this is an amazing business, but somehow it's turned from strategy and making clients love us to being busy and grinding out keywords in Google all day long. And we wanted to free up marketers to become more awesome and and less busy. So that's our mission right now.
Okay, that's very, very, very interesting. Just on that front, so you're killing the whole side of the industry if you're fully automated and using AI/machine learning to do the work. You and I grew up in the 90s and 2000s when it was big ideas were, before the granularity of
that's right
where we are now. You want to get it back, but what about all the other people doing that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, well, like I said, when I went through school, it was a high.
Annoying.
No, it's a great, because I definitely have a view on it. But when I went through school, I was still working with film and a computer at the same time. And then the film part went away. And the next group came in, and they didn't have film anymore and went directly to computers. And so automation is nothing new in computers, technology, and the evolution of technology won't stop. What I believe is we started to sell results because I didn't want to go through the subjective process of somebody telling me that green was better than blue and my idea was better than yours. We wanted to let the data actually see through so that we would have more objective time to do what we wanted to, let the data show what's working. And I don't think that has changed. You're right, though, at a certain point, the big ideas, we're only left to the big conglomerates and the big agencies that could sell that through. And the idea of creative campaigns and creative problem solving got squished underneath this pile of optimization and keywords, and digital marketing, all very relevant for a certain period of time. But it also made everybody, like I said before, very busy, overworked, in many cases, stressed, unhappy. And we forgot how to not only be creative, but we don't have enough time as well. So we don't aim to automate the agency or the marketing process. We want to be able to look at the repetitive, mundane parts of all of our business and look at ways to get rid of those, because none of our people want to be doing them. We want to be strategists. We want us to solve business problems. We want to create beautiful experiences. So that is our view on it. And in many cases, we look at the world of machine learning and AI as a form of customer service, where if we can allow ourselves to be freed up to it and our clients can, ultimately get what they want more quickly, and the team that's doing it is that much more happier, I believe that better, more creative ideas will continue to rise to the top. So that's a big thing for us.
What's keeping you up at night?
Right now, not too much, but outside of, like I said, my children's feet in the face, it's pretty good. I'm up late, up early, but I'm okay on the sleep side. But if anything, really, it's just getting through this kind of crazy world and adjusting, and we've all sort of been through that. But
hopefully by the end of the weekend we might.
That's right. Let's get through it, right? So
different time. Yeah. Okay. Well, hey, thanks. It's been a great interview. Thank you. Really enjoyed it. People listen to us and look at us, and we spark things. How can people get a hold of you online if they have some questions afterwards?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, LinkedIn, Eric Vardon, just, Google search me, look for Morphio, Morphio.ai. You can find me there too. Just happy to talk to anybody, especially other agency owners, marketers, et cetera. I do this all day long, and it gets me excited. So happy to chat with anybody anytime.
Okay. Eric, thanks for coming on Canada's podcast. It's been really nice having you.
Thanks, Phil. Appreciate the time.